It's my pleasure now to introduce another person who has stood with the people of Iran and who has stood with the Iranian resistance, the former member of the United States Senate from New Jersey, Senator Robert Torricelli.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a question, and I need an answer. Can an election where a dictator chooses who gets to run ever be legitimate? Can a regime which kills innocent people of its own blood, the fruit of Iran and liberty, ever have a legitimate right to rule? Can the mullahs who have forced its children into poverty, women into prostitution, drugs on the streets of Tehran, ever have a right to rule the great people of Iran? Do we want regime change or just a change? Is it enough to just change faces of the dictators? Do we want an election where the people choose their own candidates and make their own choice? I want all of us to speak to those people in Camp Liberty and the brave 100 in Ashraf who hear our voices now. In every struggle of every nation, there's a long and difficult road that gets traveled. Make no mistake, for 100 years, the school children of Iran will learn that the road to Iranian freedom led through Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty. To those brave 100 who stand alone in Ashraf, to those 3,100 who have faced suffering and oppression in liberty, you are the point of the spear. Generations will admire what you did, your courage, your bravery, your belief in the Iranian people, that you never gave up, you stood strong in the face of the mullahs. We admire you, and we will never, ever forget you. And finally, I want us all to make this pledge. We will come back, we will stand up, we will fight until the last of these mullahs has seen the gates of hell. The victory of liberty, the victory of justice. We will win this fight as sure as you are here today. We will see the mullahs fall. A liberty will be restored in Iran. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce to you next another former member of Congress who was also most known as the former director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, Director Peter Goss.
Thank you. Let me tell you how happy I am to be here to have a live audience. I congratulate you for your spirit, your sacrifice, and your endurance, because it is truly remarkable. The MEK is not a terrorist organization. I apologize it took so long to get the State Department to admit it. One of the things I also do know about terrorist organizations is there is one leading in Tehran right now, the Ayatollah and his cronies. I truly hope it does not take us as long to convince the White House and the State Department that they indeed are a terrorist organization. Your help has been great. You've got to keep it up. We've got work to do. Tehran is dangerous not only to the Iranian people, it's very dangerous to the whole world. And that's one of the reasons you see this extraordinary, this amazing outpouring of dignitaries, of serious people, decision makers from all over the world coming forward to address the issue, your issue for which you have sacrificed so much. Now, we know that the presidential election you've just had in Iran was remarkable for one thing. It was a very obvious hoax. As Newt Gingrich said, is a puppet with a smile better than a puppet with a frown? We all know the puppet is the Ayatollah's puppet. The extraordinary list of people here today is complemented only by the extraordinary broadening in depth and breadth of the resistance movement. I have been addressing audiences for several years since the great atrocity at Camp Ashraf. I have seen the movement grow. I have seen the leadership lead brilliantly, heroically. I have sadly seen the wall. I know what the price has been. I know what the cost of this truly is. And that is something we must never forget as we go forward. We have had an awful lot of help from the resistance movement, understanding what is going on and understanding what the path forward will be. President Rejوی has given us 10 points. I have 4 more to add for what I will call today's policy. The first one I would think would be the question of testing the new president. And frankly, we don't expect much on that score. I think that it is self-evident that there is agreement on that point from what you've seen today. Secondly, and I think this is very important, furthering your actions to isolate and discredit the Ayatollah and his regime in the court of world opinion. That's working. It's getting attention. It's not just the lanes of commerce and traffic where you're making an advantage. It's across the globe, as you see, with the attention that is happening. Third, and I think this is very important for people who care about national security, we have to proactively neutralize the terrorist elements acting on this regime's behalf, whether they be the Hezbollah or the IRGC or the Quds Force or the yet-to-be-identified proxy killers like those who rocket bombs, not once, but twice, or maybe more, Camp Liberty. And finally, and this is most important, and you know it because this is the reason we're all here, to encourage and support the legitimate opposition resistance in all that they do. You've succeeded in bringing attention in very high offices around the globe to the true plight of the Iranian people. You've paid a very high price, as I've said. The regime change must come. The Ayatollah and the mullahs cannot ignore the force of the resurgence of the legitimate opposition. It's not going to go away. It's going to go onward to freedom, and it's going to go forward now. God bless you. Good luck. We're with you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Ambassador Robert Joseph to step forward. He is the former U.S. Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security.
Well, good evening. It is a true honor for me to join with you today in your demand for a democratic, a secular, and a non-nuclear Iran, and of most immediate concern in your demand for the safety and security of your brothers and sisters in Camp Liberty, held hostage in Iraq. Last week's sham election, as others have already pointed out, but having watched personally Mr. Rouhani's approach when he was head of the nuclear negotiations now some 10 years ago, I know his objectives are the same objectives as those of his predecessor, and that is to continue the quest for nuclear weapons. He knows how to play the West, and he will continue to play the West, and he will do it well until the West realizes that it is a fantasy in terms of him being a reformer. This disguise must not be allowed to provide more time to complete the remaining steps, the few remaining steps, before Iran can have a nuclear weapon. The mullahs have pursued negotiations as a game, and they have won. They have gained over a decade of time to pursue the program. From my experience, what stands out is the enormous value that the mullahs place on nuclear weapons, because such weapons will allow them the confidence to pursue their aggressive agenda in Syria and beyond without fear of consequence. This is a regime without legitimacy. It is a regime that is despised by its own citizens. As well as with all authoritarian governments, the people of Iran are the greatest threat to the survival of the regime. And it's also why regime change is the only sound policy. Appeasement and accommodation will not work. The murderous attacks on the defenseless civilians at Camp Liberty reflect the mullahs' fears of the resistance movement represented here today. Under the leadership and wisdom of Madam Rajvi, you are the ones who will play the central role in achieving the objective of all of us who support democracy and human rights in Iran. It's a privilege to join forces with you in your cause of freedom. Thank you very much, and God bless you.